Hey everyone, Fine here, and we are back with another controller review. And today we have a HITBOX controller that we found on Lazada. It was shipped from overseas in China, and it was from a store called SQ Arcade. It's a store that sells a lot of Pandora arcade console products, as well as some HITBOX controllers that have very few but positive reviews. I've been looking for a hitbox controller that's not too expensive. Most people would recommend me to just make my own controller from DIY, but my friend showed up and showed me, look at this controller. It's really cheap. I need to know if it's really good, and that's what I'm here for. Just like I've always been doing, of course, I'll be doing an unboxing. I will showcase the entirety of the whole controller, and I'll play it in some games. Show you how it works, show you how comfortable it is, maybe how bad it might be, and finally give my thoughts on the overall product. So, without further ado, let's get on with the unboxing. And so, here I have the product right now. I got the package. I got it within like 1 week, so that's pretty good considering it was overseas. And my trusty pair of scissors. So, let's get on with it. So we have the box opening right here. Here we have the FightBox. But taking it out of the package, here's what it looks like. So apparently they sell it in different formats as well. They have the classic hitbox controller. They also have the mix box, which uses the WASD keys. But of course, the one I ordered was the hitbox style controller. So there's not really much other details to look at here. It does say that it uses a Cherry Mix MX Black, a USB encoder board, Brook fighting board, and a 3-meter USB cable. From the store itself, they sell it in the controller, whether it's compatible for PC and PS4. But for me, I don't have a console, and I don't think I'll be playing in a console anytime soon. So with my computer, I only ordered a hitbox controller that only works in PC. Just worth noting. Zoomed in. Alright. It right here. Another styrofoam. This looks really small. Here we have the 3-meter USB cable, and we have a little instruction manual. So I'm guessing this is a detachable USB cable, and this is what it looks like from the outside. So let's take it out of the wrap. Here we are. Let's take it out. Here we are. This is the controller right here. And so they have a USB-C plug right there. I believe it's USB-C. It doesn't look like a USB-B slot right there. And here is the front. Bottom right here, it's transparent, so you can see the inside of the controller. Oh wait, no, it's not as transparent. It uses a transparent kind of glass, but kind of blurs out a bit of what's inside, so you can't see it completely clear. But I can see the USB encoder from here. I don't know if you can see it. Right there. See it right there? So I'm getting a feel for the buttons. This is like a red switch type of buttons because it slides in really smooth. My fingers have barely any resistance as compared to a button like a blue switch. This is Cherry MX buttons. I'm not too big on keyboard keys and buttons and switches, so I'm sorry if I got some of those descriptions wrong. But let's see. It also has additional 3 buttons here, and this right here. Yeah, there's 3 buttons right here on this side. They're really small. It's nowhere near the one like the one in the box, where there's multiple white buttons. In fact, the HITBOX controller I have here isn't listed here. It seems to be 6 different buttons. Oh wait, no. 6 buttons on the side. Aside from the standard ones, you have the 3 really tiny buttons. I believe that you can map this to start, select, and I don't know, turbo or something. And as well as R3 buttons, I guess. And of course, there are 8 buttons for the inputs and the 4 buttons for directional inputs. So, if ever you just want to see what it looks like, here's what it looks like. So just like a normal HITBOX controller, the most bottom red button is the up button, and the middle red button on the left side is the down button. Weird. It's just that there's supposed to be 6 white buttons if you're gonna purchase this kind of HITBOX controller, but we're given a controller that has 6 buttons that are really tiny. But not a big deal as long as the controller is working. So that's for the unboxing and the showcasing of the controller. It's really small too. It's really light. I can keep this in my backpack too very easily. It's really neat. I hope it works. I have had experience of purchasing hardware from online shopping and it doesn't work, but we're about to find out. So now let's test out the controller. So right here I have the USB cable. So it is USB-C. USB-C right here and USB-B. It's just gonna untie it right here and connect the cable to here. I'm gonna connect it now to my PC. Oh, there we go. So on my PC, it said it's setting up the RAC PC360 joystick right here. So I think we're gonna go with a simple test in Fight Game. Okay, so I have the controller on my lap right now to give the best showcase of this. So the first game I want to test it on is my favorite game, of course, Third Strike. So let's first fix our inputs.
Prepare to strike now.
So right here. Oh my god, that's weird. I am not used to having a jump button or a start spacebar jump button. Oh man. So there we go. So far all the buttons are working pretty well for all the black buttons and red buttons for the directional inputs and your attack buttons. Oh man, this is weird. I don't know how to do a DP here. Never mind, it's easy as so let's try a special cancel. There we go. I don't really know too much about the SOCD tricks of HITBOX, but I'll try and showcase it in a bit after learning. So it'll be probably another time period before you can see me doing the tricks. Oh, but there we go. My classic B&B, baby. Finally, we got to showcase with another game, and of course, it has to be Street Fighter 6. I have been enjoying this game a lot, so it'll be probably the game I spend the most time on if I'm ever to learn on HITBOX controller. Got to show the other buttons as well. So the bottom button right here that's on my webcam right now, near the red button, the most bottom one is the R3 or L3 button for the record, wait no, for playing the recorded move, and on the other side is the record button, which I believe is the L3 button. It's just like that. On the right side of the controller of the black button, the topmost is the start button. I believe, yes, right underneath the start button is the select button. So you have start, select, and L3 button, I believe. On the left side most with the directional inputs is... Alright, so I believe the second middle button right here is the PlayStation button. Because you don't see it, but on my side of the screen it is showing an overlay for the Xbox social. So I believe the other button must be turbo button. Hold on, let me check. I can't get turbo button to work. How does this work exactly? Well, anyways, I don't think I have that much use for the turbo button, unless you guys are a big fan of that. I will try to figure it out in a few more minutes, but just for a little sample, I guess, is to show one combo with Cammy with the HITBOX controller. So that's one sample combo with the HITBOX controller. It is pretty good. It's pretty good so far. It has pretty much all of the working functions you need: start, select, L3, R3, as well as a PlayStation button, although this is only compatible for PC, and all of the directional input buttons as well as your buttons for the attack buttons are all working, and it just functions really well. It's also really nice that it has a detachable cable, but we'll get more into that into our final thoughts for the part of the video. Hi everyone! So it has been several months now that I've been using this HITBOX controller. I've been using it since June. June was the month that I bought this controller originally. So it's been 5 months. I've been using it almost every other day whenever I'm playing fighting games. So it's safe to say that I've experienced a lot of things with it, both good and bad. So now I would like to give my final thoughts on the product. So I'm gonna start by listing down all the pros and, well, positive features of the HITBOX controller that I have. So the first part is that it's a pretty cheap controller. So usually the decent controllers that are being sold are around 3,000 pesos, which is the same price that I bought this controller for. It's almost on the same worth or price as a 8-bit do controller or a May Flash F300. So 3,000 pesos for an entry-level HITBOX controller is pretty decent. And aside from being a cheap controller, it is a snackbox controller. The difference between the two, right, is that a HITBOX controller is just as big and wide as a arcade stick. So that makes it really difficult to bring around. Like, you can't easily put it on any bag and can't bring it anywhere, as compared to a snackbox controller, which is just this small. Again, let's put it in reference. It's this small and it's this thin. You can almost put it in your pocket or put it in your bag, any bag, handbag as well. So it's much more portable. It's much easier to bring around. And another good pro for it is the USB-C connectivity. So I've also tried it. So this is still the original USB-C cable that it came with in the package. I've also tried using the USB-C connector from my phone charger. I've also tried a few other cables, just two though, and they all work perfectly fine. I tried connecting it to my to my HITBOX controller, to my PC, and they're both working just fine. So that does offer a bit of flexibility. If you ever do break one of your cables, you can just replace it with another generic cable, and you should still be able to use your snackbox controller perfectly fine. So those are all of the pros for the controller. So now let's get to the cons and negative features of the snackbox controller, which may seem few in number, but trust me, it was pretty bad enough that it made me reconsider trying to recommend this for other people to buy. So what are these cons? So first of all, it is the buttons, the menu buttons, as I'd say, to describe the start, select, L3, R3 buttons of a arcade stick or a hitbox controller. So as I mentioned earlier in the earlier part of the video, right here, you can see that the buttons right here that are designed for the menu buttons are really small and they're really uncomfortable to press. And that is really bad if you're going to be using a controller for fighting games, because you're going to be using the start and select button a lot, or even the L3 R3 button, especially when you're going in training mode. As a fighting game player, you're going to be using the select button to reset the state or stages in training mode. So you're going to be pressing it a lot. And if you're going to have buttons that are very uncomfortable to press, you might want to reconsider using a different controller. Also, just to mention, in the long time that I've been playing with this controller, I actually did not use the select button of this controller, or even the start button. For example, in Dragon Ball FighterZ, whenever I enter training mode with that game, I never used the buttons of this controller. I always used the keyboard buttons. So I learned that tab, I think, or backspace would reset the state of the stage of your training mode. So I would always use my keyboard buttons whenever I had to use it for menu buttons. So the fact that I had to rely on another controller just to pause and reset my training state in fighting games made me want to reconsider that these are really bad buttons. Not only that, like, it did make me feel like I was purchasing a more inferior controller, because the package, remember, the box that this controller came with did not have my kind of controller with these buttons pictured on the box. It had like white thick buttons that probably use the same switches as these buttons, which if you had that kind of controller, then by all means you could use that. I would recommend you to use those kind of buttons. But these really thin, small buttons, they're really bad buttons. I wouldn't recommend using it. And that's just the first con. The second con is that the directional buttons right here, these red buttons, are being registered as the left analog stick of a PS4 controller. So what's the big deal with this one? The problem is that for some fighting games, they only use the D-pad controller, or the D-pad part of the controller, as the only way to navigate around the game. What do I mean by this? In Tekken 7, you can only use the D-pad in order to navigate through the main menu. If you try and use your left analog stick, it won't register any form of movement or directional input. So every time I boot up Tekken 7 and then I try to use this hitbox controller, I cannot navigate through the menu. I have to use the arrow keys of my keyboard or any part of my keyboard in order to navigate around the main menu. Even when I'm in character select, it won't register. I had to use my keyboard yet again in order to select a character. It became annoying sometimes to use this kind of controller because it only registers as left analog stick. And there could have been a simple fix for it, make it register as D-pad controls, but there's no way to do that, as far as I know at least. It was difficult to figure out if I can make it register as a D-pad controller with like the manual not really mentioning any of that. Or maybe you can use a third-party software in order to fix this issue, but I'd rather just have my controller plug and play, right? So that's the second con. The third and really crucial con of this controller is the durability. So in the 5 months that I've been using it, I believe it started last month or a few weeks ago, this controller started disconnecting and reconnecting on its own every 5 minutes whenever I'm trying to use it. So I'll put in a sample footage from when I was trying it in Guilty Gear training mode. When I was playing in training mode and I was using this controller, in like almost not even a minute, the controller would suddenly disconnect and suddenly reconnect. You can hear it from the Windows notif sound effect in the background, and then it would reconnect like around 10 seconds later. So that really sucks. The durability is really bad. It lasted about what, 4 months, and then it started malfunctioning. So for me, if you really want to buy a controller for any video game on that matter, you want it to last at least 1 year or 2 years, even better, right? So the fact that my controller, this HITBOX controller, started malfunctioning 4 months in, it's a low blow. I couldn't recommend anyone buying this controller. If they could fix some of these cons, I feel like a lot of these negative features can easily be fixed somehow, but maybe I just bought a really cheap inferior version of the snackbox controller. Who knows? Maybe I can find a better option in the future. But yeah, that's all of the cons, all of the negatives of this HITBOX snackbox controller. Now, for my conclusive or closing thoughts on this HITBOX controller. The best way to summarize my entire experience over the 5 months that I've been using it is that this is a really fun but disposable HITBOX controller. Now, don't get me wrong, I had really good experience with it in the first 2 months that I've been using it. Even though I wasn't used to HITBOX, I was also really happy that I finally got to experience what it was like to play on a HITBOX controller. But yeah, a lot of these cons made me realize that this controller won't last on a long-term basis. If you want to learn a controller and master it and play it for a really long time, this is not a very good controller to use. It was fun, but yeah, the disposable part goes to a lot of the features that you're gonna have to deal with for the rest of the lifespan of your controller. And so I don't think it's worth buying it. So for the last 2 questions to conclude this review, would I recommend anyone buying this controller? No, I don't. It is not worth your money. Well, maybe if you want to spend 3,000 for a HITBOX controller just to know what it's like, if you're willing to risk the fact that it might break within 4 months or less, then go ahead. Just so you know, I didn't even do any damage to this snackbox controller. I just placed it, I would just regularly use it, put it in my lap, connect it to my PC, and play. And then when I'm done with it, I would just put it in a small container where I would put all of my controllers. This has never been dropped, it has never been damaged. There's no reason why it shouldn't be working. I believe the problem may lie within the brute board or the board inside the controller that's supposed to make it work, so that sucks. I don't recommend anyone buy this. So overall, the rating for this controller that I would give out of 5, I would give this controller 1 out of 5. It could have been a 2 if it could be more durable or if the buttons were more comfortable, but it had neither of that. So yeah, unfortunate. I really like this controller. I did enjoy playing HITBOX, but it looks like I'm gonna stay an arcade stick player for the rest of my life. So yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed this video. I make videos like these as a hobby. I hope you guys got some insight out of it. But yeah, that's all for this review. See you next time.